and also Helena. We have Helena in the house tonight. We might have a little Billings in the house. Do we have a little Billings in the house tonight? Oh no, that was last night. Billings was in the house last night. And we had a little Bay Area in the house last night too. Flying in for a little MOMedy. Yeah. Welcome to MOMedy. For those of you that are parents, you might relate to knowing that one of the other working titles for tonight's event was Traumedy. We went with MOMedy. Trauma will be the next series. Tonight is true tragic comedy. The stories are as heart-wrenching as they are hilarious. And my name is Melissa Banks, and I'm a storyteller. I am a maternal mental health advocate. I am the producer of tonight's event. I, at times in our many month-long journey, was called the Sherpa. I think a couple of days ago, Liz, you called me the mama. And I thought, I like that. I like that. I'm the mama of MOMedy. So just think of me as like a giant walking mammary gland. This is my role, yes. And it's an honor. Some of you may have seen my one-woman show called Playing Monopoly with God and Other True Stories. It is a tragic comedy about our journey through childbirth, postpartum psychosis, and a return to wellness. You can be the judge through the night whether or not you think I'm actually well. This journey, my husband and I and our daughter and our 130-pound dog, Etta James, have dedicated the better part of the last 4 years to sharing our story with the world. And when I say the world, I really mean Western Montana. And actually, we did do a year-long West Coast tour. We sold out shows in LA and Seattle, and most recently sold out a series of shows in New York City. And it has been incredible to see people show up again and again. Over 6,000 people have heard our story. And people show up because we are desperate to hear, we're hungry to hear one another's true, unfiltered, horrendously sad, absolutely hilarious, inappropriate stories about those things in life that we don't talk enough about. Amen. Right? Yeah. So that's what we're doing tonight. I want to say that on this journey, one of the coolest things that I've had the honor of doing is holding storytelling workshops, which is this peer-to-peer advocacy model. So I've done many of them with moms that experience trauma or loss in the perinatal period. And in March, in Missoula, courtesy of Community Medical Center, we did one, and all of these beautiful mamas that we'll meet tonight showed up for that workshop. And that night, our intention was never to ready anyone to perform. In fact, if that's what we had said, I don't think anyone would have come. No. The point of the workshop was to excavate each mama, for her to excavate her truest voice around an experience that rocked her world. Right? Beyond the shame, beyond the stigma, beyond the self-blame or the blame of others, or beyond what anyone else thought or thinks. What was her story and her voice about that story? And we laughed and we cried and we got really witchy woo-woo. And we at one point were like laying with our heads on each other's bellies like you do when you're a kid and you laugh together. And saying out loud parts of our experiences that we had never said to anyone else, and laughing and crying with our heads on each other's bellies. And I can say for certain that at least one of us peed during that exercise. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm certain there was one. I want to say that tonight is a long-term dream come true for me. My mantra has always been, if my story does nothing else, may it unleash yours. And these mamas and one papa are going to be unleashing the shit out of some stories tonight. It is absolutely my honor to be the MC for tonight, and we're gonna jump right in. I do want to say before we start that there isn't a mom on stage tonight that has ever done anything like this. This is a brand new experience for every storyteller. It takes some massive ovaries Not only to get up here and tell a story, but to tell a story about something really that in all these cases, at some point in time, if not tonight, comes with a lot of shame. And so I want to say that there isn't one of them that will hold back on you tonight, and I ask that you don't hold back on them. With your laughter, with your tears, with your presence, and with whatever comes. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'd also like to ask you to silence your phones. We are filming tonight. MCAT is here tonight filming. So we will begin. I have to give the hubby a little because he can't hear me up there. So let's start. Jenny Frizzles Fuller is a wife, mom, stepmom, educator, writer, and a pediatric sleep consultant. Being a mother stretches her beyond the limits of herself. At the same time, roots her firmly and deeply within her own heart. She is humbled to share the stage and this journey with such vulnerable, courageous women. Jenny Frizzle Fuller.
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa. So as a second grader, I was obsessed with the Titanic, tree frogs, and most of all, babies. So when I found a book at the library with a newborn baby on the cover and the title, All About Babies, forget about it. That night, my mom sat down next to me with my library book in her lap, and I thought for 1 second, we're getting a baby. Not the case. No. We would not be getting a baby because for that to happen, my parents would have to do this thing. On page 42, I would not be getting a baby ever because I would not be doing the thing. On page 42. My mom said she hadn't planned on talking to me about sex yet, but obviously I was curious. No, I said, I just wanted a book that was all about babies. Somewhere along the way, my body began to manufacture enough hormones to make peace with and actively pursue what was on page 42. I imagined that one day I'd wake up next to my future husband and feel a little queasy. I'd take a pregnancy test and then tell him through happy tears that we were going to be parents. My imagination in my early 20s functioned a lot like a rom-com, where things were never hard, just silly. So we were on our third date when I told my husband I wanted to have his babies. His response was something like, I guess I could do that. Which, if you are a woman, means absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing that would make me happier. I mean, what single dad of 2 preteens isn't hoping for a couple of newborns to come along, right? So, 4 years, a marriage, and a vasectomy reversal later, he was really on board. We discovered we were going to need some help. There were lots of swimmers, they just weren't getting out or in. They weren't getting where they needed to go. And so we got some help. People don't talk about infertility. When you tell your inner circle, they say something along the lines of, oh, when you stop trying so hard is when it'll happen. If you mention IVF, they think, Octomom. You feel a little defective and there's shame, so you stay silent until now. I remember when we saw the price tag for our potential progeny, I said to my husband, you know, I could just go out some night, have a couple of drinks, find a one-night stand. It would be so cheap. No. We ended up financing our kids like exactly the same way you finance a car. So those of you with those free babies, you know who you are. Your babies took like a half a bottle of cab to conceive. I think you can buy those boots. Once we signed all the paperwork, a cooler with about $4,000 worth of injections showed up on our doorstep. There was something to manipulate my cycle, something to make my ovaries produce a metric ton of eggs. There was something to make the perfect environment in my uterus for an embryo to call home. A romantic evening of baby making basically included my husband jamming a syringe the size of a knitting needle into my butt muscle. Oh, there were side effects like acne, bloating, mood swings, brain fog. Just imagine the worst PMS you can, and then go fuck yourself. Going into the clinic waiting room in Spokane every few days was like something out of The Handmaid's Tale. Oh, hi. May the Lord open. Blessed be the fruit. Factory style, we all had our blood tested, an exam done, and then it was back in the car for a 3-hour drive home. Now, usually a woman's eggs take turns releasing 1 egg per month. We know this, right? Biology. Because of the meds, mine produced 20 all at once. Thank you. Which the doctor extracted, mixed with my husband's extracted sperm, and created 17 embryos. Not bad, right? 5 days later, we learned that only 10 of those embryos had survived, the strongest one of which had grown into 7 whole cells and would be placed in my uterus the next day. The rest would be frozen. If luck was on our side, I'd be knocked up by lunchtime. So apparently something about this whole process is much easier if a woman's bladder is very full. I was told to drink 32 ounces of water and come to the clinic in an hour. From the time I got there, another full hour passed before I was laying on the procedure table, feet in the stirrups, deep breathing, trying not to pee all over the room. As the nurse shined a spotlight so bright at my lady parts that I thought, if I open my mouth, light is going to shine on the She then pressed the ultrasound wand to my distended belly, and then I was able to actually see my very full bladder next to my very empty uterus. The doctor came in and situated himself on a stool so he was eye to eye with my vagina. He attempted to make small talk, which I find only slightly less awkward is when the dentist does it. What is it about orifices that makes these people so chatty? I don't know. I was able to see the straw with our embryo in it make its way onto the screen. My nurse said, "Watch. You'll see a miracle in a second, but it's easy to miss." There was this little flash of light. "That was your embryo being released," she said. I know what you're thinking. Yes, 20 minutes later, I was allowed to pee. I almost climaxed, it felt so good. Before we were allowed to leave the clinic, we were given 2 rules. 1, no home pregnancy tests, because all those hormones in my body could cause a false positive. You don't want to give someone like me false hope. 2, no online IVF forums, because those bitches be crazy. The words hadn't even left her mouth before I knew I would be cleaning Target out of their supply of pregnancy tests, peeing on stick after stick, scrolling through every forum I could find. 9 long days later, I learned I was pregnant. Thank you. Yay! Awesome. We call her Nora Defiance. With her in my arms, I poorly navigated 9 months of sleep deprivation, and what I later would learn was postpartum anxiety. I resigned from a job I really loved because leaving her made it so much worse. But at the same time, I also fantasized about putting her in the garage sometimes. Go figure. She's 4 now, and she is smart, and she is stubborn, and she is also really funny. Last week, from the jogging stroller, she shouted, "Mom, I'm best friends with my vagina." When Nora was 1.5, we decided to go back for another baby. My plan was to go through a transfer, get pregnant, and be done with all this. Do you hear that? It's God, and He is laughing. A month of injections, embryo transfer, wait, not pregnant. Another try, another wait, not pregnant. At this point, it's hard not to take this kind of failure personally. We took a month off. My skin was bruised. My heart was broken. I was so tired, but I couldn't rest. It was like I was always holding my breath. I tried to show up for my husband and my toddler and my stepkids, but I failed at that too. I was pissed that I was even in this position I'd never imagined myself being in. Meanwhile, every other woman on the planet got pregnant that month. And let me know by saying, "Oh my God, we weren't even trying." So as I lay on the procedure table for the 4th time, I heard the doctor say, "This embryo is really sticky. It might not even leave the straw." I shit you not. From between my legs, I heard him chuckle. I wanted to say, "Hey, buddy, I hate to ruin your good time, but we don't have enough embryos or money or sanity to be chuckling." I saw the tiniest flash of light. That sticky little embryo would grow into a sticky little girl we call Audrey Mayhem. She is pure joy. She never stops moving until she sleeps. I like to think she's making up for the 2 years she spent frozen. She throws her shoes at me while I'm driving. And without those 2 failed rounds, we wouldn't have gotten Audrey. We're one of the lucky couples for whom IVF was successful, half the time. We didn't have years of disappointing news or a double mortgaged house. I know you might think we weren't meant to have children if we needed this much help, as though our ability to have kids together should rely entirely on a decision my husband made before he even met me, and immediately knew he wanted to have kids with me, as you recall. But we all need a little help, don't we? I mean, with conception maybe, or pregnancy, delivery, or postpartum, or finding the goddamn infant Tylenol at midnight in an airport. People assume that because we worked so hard to get our girls that I spend every day bathed in a glow of gratitude for them. And I'm so grateful, don't get me wrong, but I still curse the inventor of glitter and those weird Pat the Bunny books. I've had poop in my hair, and I've said things I regret today before coming to this show. I would do every injection and 3-hour drive and broken heart 1,000 times over for my 2 girls. So much of us becoming parents was scientifically engineered. We weren't even in the same room when our girls were conceived in a petri dish. But somehow, from those 7 cells, my body knew how to build a little person who wiggled her toes against my tight belly. They were meant to be, and science helped. Besides, being an IVF mama is full of unique gifts. My girls were conceived on the exact same day, making them twins, born 2 years apart. They were out here, then they were in here, and I delivered them safely out here again. So I'm kind of like an Uber. I have pictures of each of them when they were only 7 cells big. They were so quiet then. I don't know what I'll tell my daughters when they ask me how babies are made. If I'll tell them about this fairy tale I read when I was in the 2nd grade, or if I'll tell them about a journey full of magicians and magic potions where I was able to watch the moment each one found herself at home. That little flash of light is so easy to miss. Hello, little one. I'm your mom. Please stay.
Jimmy. Anna Beard is the ringleader to a 3-person circus featuring a broody psychic, the Flash, and a time traveler. Oh, what the heck?
That's part of my picture.
Is that the broody psychic? Well, there they are. Special skills include mania-fueled creation. Oh, no. Seems we have technical difficulties. Special skills include mania-fueled creation and staying up way past bedtime. Closed on Sundays for brunch and family time. Anna Beard.
Yay!
I come from a long line of scared shitless teenagers birthing babies in less than ideal circumstances. Before I take the pregnancy test, I break up with Eric because we have nothing in common. My best friend Rose responds to the 2 blue lines on the pregnancy test with an offer to go buy us a bottle of vodka or a baby name book. I'm terrified to tell my mom, so I blurt it out over the phone, and in a bizarre plot twist, she tells me she thinks she would make an excellent grandma. My OB he starts every single appointment with a, "Well, I see you're still pregnant." It's supposed to be a joke, but after daily ER visits, an emergency appendectomy, and losing 25 pounds, it doesn't feel very funny. I wait patiently for the outline of a hand to press against my belly to say hello, but it never comes. The birth is the easy part. Eric rolls around nervously on a stool while my mom waits in a rocking chair. Rose takes notes on all the things I might want to remember later, and I make bad jokes for a while. When I get uncomfortable, the nurse gives me Stadol. Everything is unbearable after that. I ask her for a bucket, and everyone looks at me like I'm about to vomit, because at this point, it's my specialty. No one knows what the fuck I'm doing in here. They try to ignore it. They make small talk, which irritates me even more. And I reach around for my phone and pull it into my bucket with me. I text Rose, tell them to shut the fuck up. Her phone dings and she reads it out loud, and her phone dings immediately after. Shh. I can't shake the feeling that something bad is about to happen. I tell myself at least I'll be able to hold my baby so soon. When the meds wear off, I realize that I have spent a ridiculous amount of time in here. Please don't let them say anything. No one says anything. I get an epidural, and the nurses start using sugar-coated phrases and avoiding questions. My OB rushes in and tells me that it's time for an emergency C-section, and my mom demands that he checks me one more time. I'm at a 10. Even though I was promised that no one without a medical degree would be below my elbows, my mom and Rose each have a knee. And even though I know that this is not the time to be worried about it, I'm panicking because they're both about to get a nice clear shot of my junk. After a few pushes, I feel a release in my vagina, and I look at Rose and I desperately ask, is she out? Is she okay? Rose looks, and the look on her face tells me that I've ruined sex for her forever. Not yet. Another handful of pushes, and they plop my daughter's tiny body onto my chest. She arches her neck to look at me and lets out the tiniest baby alligator chirp. I'm so in love that I don't realize that everyone in the room is quiet. In my peripheral, a nurse's hand reaches for my baby, pulls her arm away from her body, and lets go. It falls to my stomach without a single sign of functional muscle. In my head, I can't stop staring at those beautiful black eyes. The nurse scoops her up. My birth team, my baby, my mother all disappear down the hallway, and they draw the blinds to the nursery while I'm stuck in this bed. The more time that passes, the more my chest aches and my brain scrambles. Where is she? Why did her arm do that? How long does it take for a baby to uncurl from an utero? I text Rose and tell her to go find her. They bring her back to me in a parade of hospital staff, and in front of a full audience, they tell me, or the pediatrician hands me a piece of paper with a tiny word on it, or big word, tiny piece of paper, arthrogryposis. They tell me that they aren't really sure that this is what she has, but they've been looking in medical texts and they think that's what it is. I asked the pediatrician if she can come back tomorrow. I just need to hold her. My mom and I unwrap her from her swaddle and count her impossibly long fingers and her 10 curled toes. Her knees are bent in the lotus position and her feet cup her diaper. Her arms have no discernible elbow joint and her wrists are bent. She's all sharp knees and dark eyes. Each of her knees has dimples where the joints never learned to move, and they look like smiley faces. Everything after comes in vignettes blurred by grief and trauma. In the middle of the night, a nurse comes into my room to check my vitals, and she starts telling me about her friends, cousins, husbands, stepdaughters, wife, who's had a baby that was a paraplegic. She thinks that she's inspiring me with this story, and she keeps telling me about how strong this mom is, but in the middle of the night with a blood pressure cuff on my arm and my baby in my breast, I'm just confused. My baby can't move at all. The nurse reminds me how strong that mom is, as if that's everything, and tells me we just haven't seen anything yet. Another morning, we are standing in the nursery while the pediatrician gives us a list of unknowns. I'm trying hard not to look at the other babies in the room, and their moms are trying so hard not to stare at mine. My brain checks out, but I hear my mom in the distance offer a lighthearted hope. So it'll be a while before she plays soccer. The pediatrician tilts her head and frowns. Maybe she'll be president someday. None of us knows how to tell anyone. Something is wrong feels like dirt in my mouth, and so instead we invite people over one by one and unwrap her in front of them while I stare at them, daring them to pull back, to cry. When we get home, I search the internet. The first thing I find tells me that most babies don't survive infancy. I'm pretty sure that I asked this question, but I just don't know how to trust anyone with this. At 19, I am thrown into a world of special needs parenting. Each week, we fit in a pediatrician appointment, 2 to 3 occupational and physical therapy appointments each, and a trip to Helena for the closest ortho. I learn about club feet and Ponseti castings, about anatomy and about the anatomy of a joint and muscle development. Each expert that we encounter tells me, "You're the expert," and I'm screaming inside because I'm not supposed to be that yet. At our first WIC appointment, the woman asks me why I'm not holding my baby and pulls the blanket off to reveal 2 bulky plaster casts. The woman cries for the rest of our appointment while I memorize her face and wonder which part of this feels insurmountable to her. People corner me in stores and demand explanations. Most of them want to know if I did this to her. Everyone feels better when there's something to blame. I stagger under the weight of the blame. I obsessively Google the word on that paper until the letters fade, and I hide everyone on Facebook who has a normal baby because I see how they worry about things like breastfeeding and weight gain, and everyone shows up. I worry about breastfeeding and weight gain, and even my lactation consultant doesn't know what to say. We grow together. In the early morning light, before anyone else is awake, I unwrap her and I watch her stretch her body, and I think that maybe everyone else is wrong. I let go of what I thought life would look like as a teen parent, and I become the expert and the advocate. She learns to roll over with heavy casts and grows and proves everyone wrong. We celebrate in occupational therapy with cupcakes when she learns to pick her nose. This means enough elbow flexion to feed herself independently. I find little ways to heal from my grief. I pack away all the big feelings with all of the baby shoes she'll never wear. I find a community of special needs moms who celebrate the things that others don't understand and who lose sleep over things that others can't even fathom. It feels so good to belong somewhere. When she's 7, she'll take her first unassisted steps, and I will be forced to unpack those feelings and relive that grief. This time it's different though. This time it's not for this baby in my arms or the unknown. This time it's for every mom who had to become the expert whether or not they were ready to. For every mom who has spent sleepless nights researching medical terminology and specialists around the world. For every mom who was given a list of things that their child will never be able to do and who fights to get every need of theirs met. For every mom who was given something so unexpected, so beautiful, and so goddamn lonely, and still manages to hold up to the sky.
Reckon me. Rachel Waters, holds a doctorate in physical therapy, but currently goes by the title Mom. To Micah 7, Addie 5, Emma 3, and Chloe 1. She is grateful for the opportunity to share her story from the stage and for all of the encouragement she has received from this strong group of women through this healing journey. Rachel 1.
Girls, I probably won't share this story with you until you're 17 or 20 or thinking about having children of your own. I'll record it now and tuck it away until it's time. We moved to Montana in 2012, just as Dad was beginning his job as an emergency medicine physician. At almost 2 years old, your brother Micah was still not sleeping through the night. So as I began to prepare to deliver you, I was already completely exhausted. As I navigated the first few weeks at home with you and Micah, I was barely sleeping. Dad was back at work. Grandma had returned to Denver. I was nursing you, keeping up with Micah, the human tornado, doing laundry, dishes, dinner, repeat. I began to fear sleep because sleep brought vivid nightmares. I would become overwhelmed with dread as I lay in my bed at night and felt Satan himself walk past me. It began to be difficult to delineate reality, but I didn't tell Dad about the deeply disturbing thoughts I was having. I was afraid that he wouldn't let me be around you or Micah if I did. Panic attacks, hallucinations, and delusions mounted. I saw demons in the bathtub. I thought Micah was possessed. And all day long, I heard radio music in the background, and it was followed by the sound of glass breaking and the play gym crashing over and over. All day long, I fought the voices, Addie, and I lived in fear. Remembering the next part of the story is like trying to recall pieces of a dream upon awakening. Dad and I were out for a run, and Dad noticed that I had fallen behind, so he turned around and he saw me standing on the side of the road, peering off into the distance. I then turned to him and said in a completely disconnected monotone, "I have to go home right now and say goodbye to Mike and Addie." He said, "Why?" And I replied, "Because I'm gonna kill them." Dad realized that reality and I had parted ways and took me to the hospital. My greatest fear at this time, other than that I might harm you, Addie, was that I would be hospitalized forever and never get to raise you or Micah. As it turns out, there wasn't a bed available, so Dad made a plan with Mimi and Grandma, and I was able to be monitored at home. The knives and scissors were boxed up and put in the basement. My keys were taken away. And I would ask permission before I could hold you or change your diaper. The hardest decision I made during this time was to stop nursing you. How would we bond? What about your immune system? Almost immediately upon beginning formula, you began to gain weight, and I started to sleep through the night. With sleep and meds, my brain began to recalibrate, and surprisingly quickly, within 2 months, I was functioning again. I could drive my car without feeling like something horrible was about to happen. I could listen to the radio without hearing messages. And I could care for you and Micah. With time, the visceral horror became a fading memory. We took a risk. Emerson Elizabeth was born without a postpartum blip. We were so grateful. I felt like the chapter of my life that included postpartum psychosis was closed, and we could move on. Number 3 had been a success, and I'd always wanted 4, so why not? My entire pregnancy, the last trimester of my pregnancy, my amniotic fluid had been so low that I agreed to an induction. 17 hours, dash of Pitocin, and 3 war screams later, you, Chloe Catherine, entered the world. For the first few weeks, everything was great. Dad had time off, Grandma was here, I could focus on you. At 4 weeks, on a short trip to Helena to show you off, I had a severe headache, wasn't needing sleep, was coming up with all these grand plans, and was talking a lot. Red flags began to go off for Dad. This time around, I was overcome with fear that something was going to happen to me or one of you kids. Something about the neck. I saw Micah falling off a boat and getting something wrapped around his neck. I saw myself hanging from a tree. Then there was the actual turkey that flew into the garage door and broke its stupid neck. The nerve. I mean, I am barely functioning. I do not have time to deal with the lifeless body of a bird brain in my garage. Something gave way. Months later, as I was talking to Grandma, and she relayed the parts of the story that I couldn't remember, I remembered how immensely God protected all of us that day. In my fit of mania, I put my hand through a glass picture frame. I ran down the stairs with blood dripping onto my shoes, and I reached out to Addie, asking her to go to heaven with me. Then I returned to our bedroom and attempted to jump through the second-story window. Good thing Grandma's worked out like every day of her life. She restrained me and called Dad at work and said, "You have to come home right now, or you're not gonna have a wife to come home to." Another ER doctor covered the shift, and Dad came home. He gave me a sedative, secured the nearest psych bed, and drove through the night with me passed out in the passenger seat. I just need to take a minute to talk to Addie. Addie girl, I never meant to harm you. At the time, I was completely convinced that I had figured out a way to heaven. And I wanted more than anything for you to come to me. My greatest prayer is that you won't have any residual fear to what you witnessed that day. But if you do, I hope you can forgive me. The first night in the psych ward, I woke up terrified. And my first thought was, I killed Grandma. I remember her physically restraining me and yelling, Rachel, no! But I don't remember what she was keeping me from doing or what happened next. Later that night, I was pumping, and I feel the earth shake. Seriously, God, I have lost my mind, and I feel like I have the divine power to control everything around me, and you sent an actual earthquake to Helena, Montana, where the last earthquake occurred in like 1935. At least it gave those of us on the ward something to talk about the next morning. Pumping while I was hospitalized gave me a purpose, a motivation to get better. Every 2 hours, I would ask the nurses to get the pump out of the equipment storage closet because everybody knows that pumps and psych patients don't mix. So I needed a little supervision. I remember meeting Grace for the first time. She was middle-aged, glasses, curly brunette hair. She said, "So, what are you here for?" This was the introduction, kind of like, what do you do for a living? The intention, as I gathered it, was to rate how crazy was your crazy. Like, was this your first time, or were you a frequent flyer? As I got to know Grace better, she opened up to me about her own past, and she shared with me that she too had experienced postpartum psychosis 30 years ago, but that I was the first person she had ever told. My heart broke for her. What a heavy burden to bear for all those years. I began to seek Grace out, and the mutual encouragement we drew from one another and the conversations that we had was far more powerful than any of my brief encounters with my psychiatrist. The one book that I grabbed as I was leaving for the hospital was Max Lucado's Grace for a Moment. I read this book every day, and I shared what I was reading with Grace. Even in the hospital, I could see that my traumatic experience was being used to help others. While I was hospitalized, I read truths in a journal that I kept, like, you can't untie the knots, fix it, or put the pieces back together. It just happened. There is no reason. This is not your fault. Addie, my flower, and Chloe, my warrior child. There are days when I relive these experiences, and I wish that we didn't have this as our birth story. But it is our story. And without this piece of our family history, we wouldn't have Micah, Addie, Emma, or Chloe. And you 4 gifts make all the darkest days and painful memories worthwhile. This journey has taught me what I'm made of. And girls, your mama's tough as nails.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm willing to endure anything for you. I also want you to know that your family is incredibly strong. And we trust in God's goodness. I want you to be prepared as you write your own birth stories. I hope that your stories don't include pain, confusion, and psych wards. But if they do, I want you to know that I'm here for you. no matter what.
April, Iris, Charlotte. You girl comes from the Bitterroot Salish people and is a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribe. April lives on the Flathead Reservation and works for the Special Olympics of Montana, all the while juggling a ranch, home, and her son Chief. The busiest, I love that little butt. The busiest, on the go, clingy like no other, also the most affectionate, quick to laugh and make everyone else laugh. A little dude with an awesome dose of tantrums who likes to be naked most of the time. He and I were like separated at birth. April Charlotte.
There's like these insane gaps in the steps. I don't know if you guys can see them, but I'm like, help me. Okay. So they're like, yeah, so just, when it's your turn, get up there and get everything situated. Okay. Like I'm not just shitting my pants up here already. Wait, it's turn. Okay. Yeah? Okay. They're like, make sure the microphone is so you guys can all see me. All right, so I am a native professional woman that did not get here by mistake. I made the conscious decision to not have my children in poverty, so I went out and I got an education and I used condoms. Lots of condoms, people. Right here is a condom billboard. My budding career brought to you by Trojan. And so I turned 30, and all of a sudden there is this like boom, boom. What is that? That was the alarm that started my clock ticking. I would be in the middle of having sex, and all of a sudden it would be like boom, boom. Take the condom off. What the fuck? I don't even like this guy. Take the condom off. So it convinces me. I don't like this height. Okay. So this clock convinces me to stop drinking, stop smoking, and close up the hoe shop. And go out and find baby daddy. And I find him. Oh. And I take the condom off. Or poke a hole or two. But I get pregnant. And goddamn, did I rock being pregnant. I had that euphoric, beautiful pregnancy feeling. I wore the tight clothes over my big belly. Fat with a purpose. And so during pregnancy, I was like so overwhelmed. I had no time to read any of the childbirth or birthing books. But I did have an app that told me that my baby was the size of an apricot. That was cool. Oh, and my birthing plan, I was gonna have my baby in a teepee. That was so beautiful, right? So I was gonna have my baby 100% natural. in nature, in a teepee, with my man outside singing our ancient Indian songs. Because he could have, because I was part of my picking process. I did not fuck around when it came to picking my man. So, I go to the doctor about 7 months, and he finds a fibroid the size of a grapefruit. And I was like, fuck no! Like, I am cool with the baby fruit up in here, but what the fuck is this in my fruit basket? So he strongly suggests that I give up the teepee dream and the ancestral songs and have my baby safely in a hospital. And so the day I go into labor, we were driving to Missoula, and all of a sudden these contractions, like, they get insane, and they're 5 minutes apart. And so we get to the hospital, and the nurse gets in there, and she starts checking. And I swear she's gonna come up, and she's gonna be like, get the gurney! She's having the baby! But she's down there, and she's checking, and she comes up, and she says, you're dilated to a 1. Bitch, what? And then I puke all over her equipment. And so it turns out there was scar tissue on my cervix, which was preventing it to dilate properly, and it was causing these abnormal labor pains. And so 6 hours of contractions of these bullshit contractions, I'm dilated to a 5. We are trying everything. They say, sometimes rocking on the medicine ball can help. So I get on that fucking medicine ball, and I rock the shit out of it. Nothing is happening. And so from moment 1, I had said that I was not gonna have any fucking chemicals in my body around my baby, and I promised myself that I would endure any amount of pain so that I could have my baby naturally. God, they don't teach you this shit. She's always like, now me of the microphone over here. Okay, I did. So then they say, well, sometimes the bathtub helps. Okay. So I'm in the bathtub, and I'm naked, and I'm terrified, and I'm wailing. And then my man, my ancestral song singing man, I don't know where this card goes. So my ancestral song singing man, he is so stressed out. He's so stressed out. And he looks at me, oh God, and he looks at me, and he says lovingly, April, take the fucking shot. There's no shots in the teepee. So I'm dilated, 2 hours later, I'm dilated to a 7. The doctor comes in, and he says, it's time to take the Pitocin. Well, if you remember right, I didn't read the books. What the fuck is Pitocin? And so I say, what is Pitocin? Is it organic and non-GMO? Well, this ever so helpful non-organic Pitocin, it doesn't help a thing. Next thing I know, the doctor's coming in, and he's bullying me into a C-section. And I beg for one last try to have my baby by myself. I try, I fail, And through tears of defeat, they start prepping me for surgery. And so my vagina during all this is bushy. It is basically the last natural part of this whole birthing process that I have left. And then the nurse comes in and she shaves it off. It's awful, isn't it? And they don't even like shave it right, right? But you know, the second that I held my son, it was love. And that blissed out moment was interrupted when the nurse comes in and she asks, "So you ready for some Oxycontin?" What? Like, lady, I'm a recovering alcoholic who loves to get high. You can't offer me and my baby Oxycontin. Like, you gotta give me something else. So she says, "Well, how about some hydrocodone?" So I'm at home on hydrocodone. I'm at home on hydrocodone. I don't know why, that's just kind of fun to say. Clearly my sobriety was being tested. I'm still up here being like, "Oh, the damn hydrocodone." So I'm home, I'm on hydrocodone, and everything it's not going as planned. Motherhood was nothing like I thought it would be. All the babies that I had ever seen slept all the time. My baby, he slept every 2 hours for 20 minutes and woke up all night. And he was colicky, which made things much worse. Anytime we would put him in a car seat, he would scream bloody murder. So I went nowhere. And then at one point, I get a stay-at-home job. And some of you might think, yay! Well, for me, it was staying at home all day alone with a baby who was difficult, wouldn't sleep, only wanted me, working 8 hours a day with no childcare. And the next thing I know, I can't do nothing. And I want to die. I want to fucking die. There's just something about the day-to-day that just became so unbearable. And at one point, the ancient sing-and-song man, he comes over and I'm holding my baby and I'm just in a daze. And he comes over and he says, "Don't you just love him more than you love anything?" Let me fucking start over. This is supposed to be impactful, can't you tell by my voice? So he comes over and he says, "Don't you just love him more than you've ever loved anything that you've ever loved in the world?" And I'm sitting there and I'm exhausted and I'm feeling like a failure and I'm in shame and I'm in PTSD. And I realize that I feel nothing. I didn't love my baby. It doesn't get any easier every time I say that. And so I would nod to his question, and I would feel hollow inside, and I would think about dying. Okay, so how did I get from wanting to die to being on the stage with these amazing people? I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm even questioning if I'm even over this postpartum depression, if I even recovered at all. And yeah, I don't think about dying all the time, but on the tough days, I do stop and question myself. Why did I ever think being a mom was a good idea? You fucking ticking clock. I love that she nodded. There's glimpses of things that probably saved my life, like that stupid gummy bear song. The second I put that on the TV for my son, he was glued to the tube, and I got to shower. Yes. Oh my God, we all remember that first shower by ourselves. It's amazing. And so things just started to happen where, like I started going to the gym, I started running outside. My son's dad, started figuring it out and let me sleep in on Saturdays, and that was great. And then I didn't realize that was a joke until people laughed. I was like, oh, her man let her sleep in on Saturday. That was great. I was like, oh shit. Good day to sleep in. And so yeah, now it's not all rainbows and chocolate cake from Costco. Love that cake from chocolate Costco. But I do love the shit out of my son right now. He is 3 years old. His name is Chief Lachalpulech Victor 3 Eagles. Yeah, he is crazy funny, and he is so smart, and he is so full of energy. And even though I couldn't love him in the beginning, that boy loves harder than anyone I know. And one day, that boy will sing our ancient Indian songs to his mama while I lay in the teepee.
Laurel Sears is a Montana native with a deep love for the mountain valleys. Why can't we get rid of that shit computer screen? You had fucking 12 minutes to figure that shit out. Hey, hubby, this shit's being recorded. Figure that shit out before the next story. Don't make me use the D word. Laurel Sears is a Montana native with a deep love for the mountain valleys, rivers, and outdoor spaces. She teaches, performs, and creates dance in many ways in Missoula, and is an adjunct at the UM. Laurel has the pleasure of loving two of the best guys, Emerson, the little one, and Robert, the not so little one. Laurel Sears.
Yay!
Still not fair that I have to go after you. So I'm not what you might call a tall person. When my son reaches up his tiny little arms and says, I realize, oh yeah, to some people, I am tall. But to most of the 12 plus population, fairly short. I was always the shortest in my class, and by middle school, kids started to tell me things like,
You know, if you don't grow any taller than 4'11", you would be technically the size of a dwarf. So new goal in life, technical dwarf. When I would see pregnant women as a kid, I would think to myself, first of all, and then I would think, that is not for me. No. My tiny body is not meant to have another tinier body inside of it. Where would it go? And how would it get out? I soon realized that this fear of childbirth was not unique to me. Other kids would say things like, oh, you know you have to see a vagina. Unless they couldn't say the word vagina, because I'm from Corvallis, Montana. So fast forward 20-something years from these discussions of dwarfism and childbirth at recess, and my husband and I are in a birth class together. I have demanded we take said birth class because I have been reading all the books in order to try to reconcile my childhood idea of childbirth to what happens or what could happen. And I just wanted to share that experience with my loved one. So we're in childbirth class, and the instructor has come up with this game. You roll the dice, and for each roll of the dice, you're representing a stage of labor, and you talk about what you would do in that stage of labor. So we roll the dice in our group, we get a 6, a 5, and a 6, 17-hour labor. Whoa, said one of the cute, young Prego ladies. I didn't know you could push for 6 hours. I knew because I read all the books. Yeah, I said, well, she's so sympathetic. I'm sorry, Dad. And so my husband says, for the first phase of labor, we should probably just take a nap, right? What? I said, I don't think you understand this game. This game is about the phases of labor, what you do while you're in labor. No, I understand the game, he said. It's just I heard that the first phase of labor was not that bad, so you should probably just lie down and rest. I will not be lying down and resting. I will be timing every contraction on my app on my phone that I just got, maybe rereading all of the books and thinking about how I do not die in this process. That's exactly why you should lie down and rest. Maybe you should lie down and rest. Maybe we should both lie down and rest. No. And we look up, and everyone in the birth class, including the birth instructor, is staring at us. So birth class was a super constructive time for everyone. And when it came time to birthing my little guy, all that preparation just meant there were a lot of ways to be confused. If we were playing the dice game with my labor, you would need a many-sided dice. Like a 20-sided dice from Dungeons and Dragons. 2 of those. You roll the dice and it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, motherfucker. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, what day is it? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, I think I'll have the epidural now. All in all, a 38-hour labor. My husband, during that time, was my rock. Never did he leave my side. And I think he lost like 5 pounds because I hung my entire body weight from him for hours on end. It was a really good workout, and I really, it's like, why would you roll a tractor tire when you could do that? Anyway, we had an all-natural birth plan also. And even though it was the farthest thing from our plan or preferences or whatever they tell you to call it, My husband cried with relief when I got the epidural. That happened. I don't have a ton of exact memories from this experience because there's just this amazing wave and wash of hormones that just take it away. Goodbye. No, we don't need all of those memories, thank you. But I do have these little snapshots. I remember the early morning of labor. I got to watch this beautiful spring day in June. The backyard morphed from this black, blue, dark purple to this milky, dusty baby blue. There was new life in the soil and new life in my belly. When we got to the hospital, the first nurse that we had for her entire 12-hour shift, I'm pretty sure was some sort of like woodland elf or something. I envisioned her living underneath the canopy of a ponderosa pine tree, like a little acorn hat, a little moss bed. She was so kind and sweet, and she helped me in and out of the birth tub and on the birth stool and the birth thing and the ball and all around, everywhere. I wanted to leave the room, but she said maybe not. Maybe stay inside the room. She had this really genuine way, and she was kind of like a mirror for me. And when she left after her 12 hours with us, and there was no baby, I got this rush of sadness and fear. I remember after being on laughing gas for an hour, that was the one intervention I was like, maybe I'll try that. I don't know, sounds fun. My parents never let me do it at the dentist because they're really mean. Yeah, it did work. It worked. I went from a 4 to a 9 in like an hour. Whoa, crazy. I had gotten totally stuck before then. And I got to the 9 and my body was like, okay, now it's time. Baby out. And it was not time. No, it was not time. And I was pushing, my body was pushing, but I wasn't pushing. This head was saying no, and the body was saying yes, and it was so frustrating. Probably like the most frustrated I've ever been in my life. That moment right there. And then I remember all the people coming in. I saw the little cart where the baby goes. There's a little cute little cart, and it's a little scale, and it's like the movies. And I was so excited, and all these people came and they watched and they waited, and then they all left very quietly. That was not a joke. There's a serious moment. So I got that epidural, I rested, I pushed 2 times, about 8 hours in total, and that was not happening. Everybody got really quiet and looked at me, and they let me say the words finally, okay, C-section. Then I finally totally lost it. Been holding it together till then, and I let myself break down. I felt shame and sadness and fear, and disappointment and failure. Through my tears, I signed all these pieces of paper, and I remember thinking some of these are in case I die or my baby dies. I have nothing but gratitude and love for all the people that helped me during this process. My midwife was amazing, the doctor was amazing, all of those nurses are amazing. The birth doula was beyond supportive. She was there almost the whole time, and my husband was my rock. The anesthesiologist floated in like an angel. She had an aura of peacefulness and cute little trendy glasses as she chanted to me, healthy mama, healthy baby. But I'm still coming to terms with the fact that my body did not birth my baby. Instead, a scalpel brought him into the light. I held and protected and nourished him in my body for almost 10 months because 9 months is a motherfucking lie. Hashtag fake news. But when it came time to actually birth my little guy, the channel didn't open in me. For months after my birth, I would get flashbacks. I didn't know if it was PTSD or a panic attack, or if it was a body memory of the place where two strong women pushed as hard as they could on my abdomen to get Emerson out through my uterus, as I lay on an operating table. I still have moments day to day, whatever if I hear about someone else's birth or whatever is happening, and I get these moments of sadness, but also shame. And I'm trying to come to the place where I don't blame myself anymore. My little guy, he's my teacher and my mirror. I love him so much, my heart sings so loud, I can't hear my thoughts. I want to build for him a playground and an imagination castle. That's a thing that I decided. And this mama job, it's a lot of work, I noticed. I noticed that in 14 months. I think we all know that. There's a lot of mundane, monotonous things, and sparkling in amongst those are the first words and the first steps, and the first time he learns to laugh at his own farts. So I think, would I do it again? Hell yeah!
Yeah.
I feel like Laurel's like a little elf. Mom's best. I want to take her home with me. Elizabeth Williams is a musician. Oh, hubby. Love you, darling. Sorry, Elizabeth. Turned math teacher, turned mother, turned student and advocate. The driving theme in her life is summarized by this quote from the Bahia writings: "The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny." Elizabeth Williams.
Yeah.
I was 12 the first time my mom told me to lose weight. She pulled me in, covered me with kisses, and then grabbed my belly and said, "You gotta get rid of that." She said that she'd had problems with her weight her whole life, and she didn't want that for me. I know she wanted to protect me. I'm a mom now. I get it. But teaching me that it's a problem to exist outside of conventional beauty standards did not protect me. I was 14 when I went on my first crash diet, losing 15 pounds in 2 weeks. Everyone commented, "You've lost weight. You look great." Oh, this feels good. At 15, I was making myself throw up after meals. Vomiting felt like a direct release of my pain. As I gagged, I would weep, and it felt good. For years, I yo-yoed between size 10 and 16, doing all the diets. I did Weight Watchers, Atkins, Sugar Busters. I even did a raw food diet for 2 whole weeks. When my son Nelson was 3 weeks old, I saw blood in his poop. So I dove into the depths of the Google. And the Google spoke to me. She told me to quit eating dairy and soy. Great, a new diet. But this was an allergy diet that required meticulous label reading. Turns out, dairy and soy are fucking everywhere. It was weeks before I looked at our vegetable oil. Ingredients, soybean oil, fucking Monsanto. I honestly didn't know that much about cooking. I thought gravy came from those powdered packets. But you can't eat shit from powdered packets when you can't have dairy or soy. I also became really fixated on having family dinners every night, which my 1-month-old baby couldn't give two shits about. So I became an expert in meal planning, specializing in dinner. I didn't think about, much less prepare, breakfast or lunch. This wasn't logical. I was thinking, must avoid these ingredients, must have family dinners. This was an obsession rooted in anxiety. By the time Nelson was a year old, I had lost over 100 pounds. Oh, the compliments though. You look amazing. What's your secret? I call it the my baby is allergic to everything diet. The truth was, most days, dinner was my only meal. I think a lot of us are brainwashed to believe that losing weight is synonymous with being happy. I was. And I didn't even see my own emotional burden. My anxiety was masked by compliments and selfies and shopping for size 6. So, what happens, you ask, when someone has a postpartum mood disorder that does not get addressed and then has another baby? The summer Samantha was born, we were really lucky that my husband was around a lot. He would leave about once a week for a few hours, and we typically tried to time his outings with my own, play dates and the like. I needed to be around people and keep my mind occupied. I could not function alone with both kids. It did happen a few times. I would get the kids down for a nap. I'd fix myself something to eat. And then, upon taking my first bite, I would imagine myself choking. I couldn't suppress it. I could see myself struggling to breathe, throwing myself over chairs, passing out, and dying. Samantha, who was just a few weeks old, would start crying. I, being dead, couldn't get her. Her crying would wake up Nelson, who was 2.5. He would stand at the baby gate at the top of the stairs, crying, and call out, "Mom, where are you?" How long would it be before someone found us? Would the neighbors hear crying and come check? Would they cry for 4 hours before my husband came home? This whole scene time-lapsed through my head. I would spit out my food and sink to the floor and sob. I couldn't catch my breath. My heart would race. My head would spin. When I came out of the height of my panic, I was an exhausted and hollow shell, making no connection with my kids. So, I always made sure there was someone around. Even if we were in public and everyone was a stranger, at least someone would be there to call 911 when I collapsed. But that was not sustainable. So I saw a psychiatrist and went on Zoloft. I started on a small dose, which worked at first, and then after a while it didn't. So we increased my dose, which worked for a while, and then didn't. Rinse and repeat a few more times. After a year, I was one step away from the maximum dose. Weight gain is a known side effect of Zoloft, and at every appointment, I saw my weight increasing on that scale. I wasn't hopeful that the maximum dose was going to help in the long run, so I tapered off. I fell into a terrible depression. I found out after the fact that this is called rebound depression, and it isn't uncommon. Oh, I might mention, during all of this, I decided it was a good idea to go to graduate school. So there I would be, staring at my assignments for hours, unable to absorb anything. Some days, instead of studying, I would lay on the couch and cry all day. A few times, I found myself kneeling at the toilet again. I medicated myself with Oreos and ice cream and Swedish fish.
Yeah.
Fucking love Swedish fish. So between the Zoloft and my sugary binges, I gained 65 pounds. This was the largest my body had been. A few months ago, I went bra shopping at this specialty lingerie store in Manhattan. Maria brought me 10 different bras, all too small, one after the other. My boobs, they're just flying everywhere. Nothing good. And then, she brought me this awful thing. I can't even call it a bra. It was like if a terrible 80s vest and a pair of 99-cent pantyhose had a white cotton baby. It was kind of funny, it was. And I was really sad. My sister held me in the fitting room, both of us shirtless, while I cried all over her and this ridiculous joke of a bra. As a side note, since then I have sworn off bras. It feels I only wear mermaid bikini tops now. So here I am, in this body. My scrambled egg belly actually hangs down, covering my C-section scar.
Yeah.
And you know, nobody comments when you've gained weight, except for my mom when I was 12. But when you've been praised for a smaller body, the absence of those compliments is deafening. And part of me says, patriarchy. Fuck beauty standards. My body is amazing. Look at what it's done. Another part of me would love to hear those size 6 compliments again and shop without breaking down in the fitting room.
I fucking love mermaids. Especially that Swedish mermaid right there. Liz Song Mendel. Liz Song Mendel is always growing up. She has spent the shortest amount of time in Montana, but has grown up the most here. She's a mama to one and a wife to another one. She's a part-time freelance designer and a full-time mom. She hopes her life story leaves her saying, wow.
Yeah.
Liz Song Mendel.
Come on.
Elizabeth is very tall.
Oh my gosh.
I was getting an ultrasound a few months ago, and my fertility doctor points to this empty space in the top middle and says, "That's where your uterus used to be." Where'd it go? Just kidding, I know where it went. I lost mine a few hours after my son was born. It was bleed to death or cut out my uterus. After a day of painful back labor, I went in for an unplanned C-section, and before I got to meet my son, I was put under, and my husband was ushered out of the operating room. And he found himself sitting in a big empty room, holding this new baby, weeping. Would his wife die having never met her child? Would he lose the love of his life? Spoiler alert, I did not die. After that first surgery, I felt pain in my belly. And even though I was in and out of consciousness, I heard the word hysterectomy. That was funny. And he said I responded with no, no, no. The next thing I know, I'm being wheeled away. My husband's holding my hand, and I'm telling him, I love you, I love you, I love you. I just felt compelled to comfort him because I didn't know if I'd ever see him again. My lifeless body was then transferred to a cold operating table. I saw bright lights above me, and then darkness. Spoiler alert, I did not die. But I did wake up in the ICU, intubated, barely able to see. My arms are strapped down, wires coming out of every hole in my body, except for my butthole. I didn't have anything coming out of my butthole. I survived, but I lost my uterus. What followed was PTSD and GRIEF, grief. I'd be awake in the middle of the night weeping. You know, the so loud it's silent, curled into a ball, guttural weeping. I was in so much physical pain after 3 surgeries in under 24 hours, but my heartbreak, that surpassed any pain I have ever known. I went to the hospital to give birth
and left traumatized and sterilized. Instead of being able to swoon at the gift of my newborn, I wondered for months if it would have been better off if I had died. I had intrusive thoughts every day. I would imagine placing my son out in the snow and watching him freeze to death. It would just be so quiet if he did. But I couldn't tell anybody about these thoughts because they'd probably call CPS. And even though I didn't like my son, I didn't want anyone taking him from me. I entered this cave after he was born, and very few people were allowed in. But he forced his way in. And I didn't feel it was fair to kick him out in the dead of winter, even though I imagined it all the time. I remember my newborn photo shoot. I had to force every ounce in me to pretend like I adored him, because that's how new moms look in their newborn photo shoots, right? I see those photos and I see someone faking it. It was a miracle I could breastfeed because I had lost so much blood. But he had this severe tongue tie, and breastfeeding became my very own form of torture. But sometimes it's just practical acts of service when you have no feelings of love to give. When someone has experienced a traumatic birth, they're still expected to jump right into taking care of a newborn. But how do you give when you have less than nothing to give? How? Sometimes when somebody is going through grief or trauma, we just need to know that our pain is seen. It took 4 months before I started liking my son. It was 6 months before I started loving him. By 9 months, I really loved my little squishy Julian. These days, between his annoying whining and the purest, most joyful laughter, I find myself squeezing him as hard as he'll tolerate and whispering, I love you, I love you, I love you. I want to make up for all those months that I was incapable of loving him. So, I was going for a run the other day. It happens like twice a year. And I just started bawling. I really want to have another kid. But I can't.
Love you, Liz.
Don't make fun of my whole legs.
She has cute bow legs. Anyway, this all happened on December 3rd, 2016. And it's been, well, I'm not in survival mode anymore because it's been a year and a half. So I've had a little bit of time to reflect on being a mama. You know, having a child is like buying a brand new smartphone. Except it comes with this app for parents only. It's called the unpredictable alarm clock app. It can go off as many times as it wants. You never know what time it was set for. It's loud. There's no snooze button. And you can never delete the app. Even if your phone runs out of battery, the app never does. My son recently went through the dreadful 18-month sleep regression, and he would reliably wake up at 5 a.m. screaming. So I'd wake up, so annoyed, and roll out of bed and go sit on the toilet to poop. I scroll Facebook without my kid. First time mamas think they know things, but we don't. We don't know what time we're gonna poop. We don't know if we'll ever have a hot meal again. We don't know what labor and delivery are gonna be like. Like, I thought because I biked from Canada to Mexico, that I'd be ready for the pain of labor. So you know how they say grow deep during labor? Like, from the depths of your soul. Like you're gonna poop. I was like, I mean, it came straight out of my neck. The rest of the delivery is pretty intense too. There was lots of blood overflowing in very unnatural ways. Blood being transfused in, being ripped open, cut apart, bleeding towards death. But spoiler alert, I did not motherfucking die. Have you guys ever heard of the before-after moment? It's a distinct moment in life where you have absolutely no control. There isn't even the illusion of control. And things are never the same. So before birth, I could have children, and after birth, I am sterile. These days, the hardest thing for me is when people announce their second pregnancy. Fucking Facebook. When I see that baby ultrasound announcement, I don't see a baby. I see my grief. I see my longing. I mean, I'll be frank, I really just prefer to hear about postpartum suffering. I can relate to that. When people talk about, oh, God, I've never known a love like this. Or things are going great. Like right after they've had a baby. I'm like, I just want to cringe inside. It's not because I feel unhappy for them. It's because it just feels so unfair. So we're currently going through a surrogacy journey to try to have a second kid. And I'm gonna be retrieving my eggs next Thursday. So my ovaries are growing. Like, I can feel it. It's almost like being pregnant, except I can't be. It's okay, you can laugh. And as exciting and as thankful as I am to be on the surrogacy journey, it reminds me of my grief all the time. Finding a uterus to house my future baby is not as easy as swiping left or right. but I'm hopeful. Because as challenging as 5 a.m. poops are, there was that first time that Julian looked up at me while I was holding him, and he said his first word, Mama. And then, as challenging as grief is, there are all those times he puckers his tiny little lips and places them on mine. Grief is a part of me now. I think you let grief settle in when you experience it. I think you let it make a home inside you. Because grief puts us in touch with our humanity. My grief is pear-shaped, and it lives in that empty space in the top middle where my uterus used to be.
Ms. Song Mandel. So this has been an amazing festival of giant ovaries. So beautiful, so brave. We're gonna, for the grand finale, we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna take this beautiful mix of giant ovaries and progesterone and estrogen. And we're gonna mix in some testosterone. Some testes. Some testes I know quite well. For the grand finale, here on a double dog dare from his wife. I'd like to introduce you to my best friend, my partner in crime, Eric Ellingson, also known as Hubby Bangingson.
All right. Good evening, Missoula. So I'm bringing up the rear. And a lot of you ladies may hear this from your husband, but don't worry, I'll be quick. I'm just playing. So, I know we've been here a while, so I'll wrap this up. Anyways, so a lot of new things come into your life when you have your first baby. There's that first poopy diaper change. Yes. There's the baby swing. There's the crib that arrives in 1,000 pieces, and you have one Allen wrench and 2 pieces of paper to help you assemble this crib at 10:30 at night. And then there's a myriad of pureed vegetables and meats that come in like jars or bags that you can suck or shoot food into your mouth. All kinds of new things. I got something really special. And it totally, completely caught me off guard. I call it FCOA. What is that, Eric? Well, my definition of FCOA is first child onset anxiety. See, I'd never had a panic attack in my life up until the time my daughter got born, or afterwards. I was always the guy on the airplane that was laughing at the other people as soon as they hit turbulence and they'd freeze up and grab their armrests. And I'd just be sitting in the back like, you pansies. The plane's not gonna crash. Everything's fine. Well, now I'm that guy. Like the smallest bit of turbulence, and I'm convinced that we're all gonna die on the airplane tonight. I remember one time I was driving to the airport, and I was in Calgary, up on a business trip. Totally closed this deal. Huge deal. I was in sales, still am. And it's on the freeway, it was gridlock traffic, bumper to bumper. And all of a sudden, whilst sitting in my Hyundai Elantra GT rental car, all of these thoughts of death and sudden death just started coming into my brain. And I start going into a panic attack right in the middle of an interstate in bumper to bumper traffic in a town that I was not familiar with, surrounded by strangers who I had no idea where. And all of this just kind of accelerated that panic attack. My heart started racing, my breath got really short, and I'm freaking out in the car thinking that this is it. I'm dying on this business trip right now. Something's happening. So I had to pull off the side of the road, and you can imagine my small frame getting out of said Hyundai Elantra on the side of the road, and I'm just pacing around on the side of the freeway, just breathing, just to make sure that my body didn't go into full-blown shutdown. Up until the birth of my daughter, I lived my life pretty fancy-free. I figured when it was time for my ticket to get punched, however it was going to get punched, that was it. So why worry about it? Whether it was hucking myself off a 40-foot cliff on a snowboard or a fiery car accident after some sweet race that I just did, or whatever other fantastic way to die, big deal. It was predetermined. It was destiny. So why even worry about it? I didn't. And then she came. My daughter. September 5th, 2012. Hey, 2 days ago, just turned 6. I'm still here. I'm still here. But she came, and the day that I held her, I remember looking down at her, number one, making sure she was mine. and just remembering and seeing how beautiful she was, but at the same time how helpless and how vulnerable she was. And I remember becoming super hyper aware of my surroundings, anything, because of this new little baby that I had in my hands. The first car ride we took, I take her out, strap her in a car seat that had been tightened down with the strength of 20 war ponies. The baby wasn't moving. Buckle her in, and we start driving. Driving down the road, checking my rearview mirror. That asshole is way too close to my rear bumper. As a matter of fact, everybody was way too close to my rear bumper. They needed to be at least 500 feet away from my back bumper before I felt comfortable, because I felt like, hey, I got a baby in here and you all are trying to kill her. To the point of where I thought I need to get out and kick somebody's windshield in. And I'm being serious about that. I was very, very protective of this new little being. I had this biological shift happen, some mental, biological thing that happened as soon as she came into this world. And with that biological shift came all this unknown. And out of all this unknown, I think it was the unknown that scared me. And, you know, the internet and Facebook doesn't help with that at all these days. I mean, we as a society are exposed to so much more on a daily basis than even 20 years ago. We see more things on our news feed or on the internet about cancer, about heart attacks, or have any of you self-diagnosed yourself on WebMD? Like you have a little pain in your muscle up here or something? Definitely a heart attack going on. Got a mole right here on your hand? That's stage 4 cancer. And every single one of those websites, I had diabetes. Every one of them. There were so many ways that I was going to die. But this time I had stuff to live for. I wanted to see the first steps, first words, kindergarten, bike rides, first time she brought a boy home to the house. I'm looking forward to that day. So I can be in that position instead of on the receiving end of the, what are you gonna do with my daughter? I wanna see that stuff. I got stuff that I wanna be around for. But on top of all of that, I have to take it back a little bit as well and explain the situation leading up to this anxiety that came. So my wife, after she had the baby, 30 days to the day, was checked into a psych ward in Providence for major postpartum psychosis. There's a little story about that running around. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard it, maybe a couple. But on top of that, I'd also just landed a new job. And that job required me to travel internationally a lot and for long periods of time, sometimes 3 weeks out of the month. So let's run it all down. New baby, check. Clinically crazy wife, check. And a job that I had to travel for in very uncertain times. Think that might drop a little anxiety? Just a little bit? Tiny bit. And then there was that constant fear of suddenly dying. So mix all that in there. And I was a wreck. And the worst times was when it was just Adelaide and myself at the home. Mama, moms need breaks. They can't just be around the babies the whole time. They gotta have their time too. So it'd be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be me and Adelaide sitting at home, and again, these overwhelming things of death would just come into my mind that I would just suddenly croak. And I have this helpless child. It's very small, can't defend for herself, can't feed herself. Who was gonna find her? How long was she gonna cry? How long would it be till somebody found me? And would I traumatize my daughter for having to be around her dead dad laying on the floor? These were actual thoughts going through my head. And I've heard some stories tonight that it sounds like this is not an uncommon thing that happens. And I don't know why it happens. But anyways, as this all happened through infancy and up until she was a toddler. And when she could start talking and we could start communicating, I taught her a song. And that song was our address. And I taught her that song so that she would know our address when she had to call 911 and talk to the operator, because she came into the room one day and Daddy was sleeping and not waking up. And that song went like this. 817 Wolf Avenue. 817 Wolf Avenue. That's right. We practiced that. We drilled it. Shit, we even role played it. I'd roll into the bedroom, I'd get on the bed, put myself in some death position. She'd come in 4 seconds later, give me some pushes, a couple slaps on the face. If I didn't respond, she knew to immediately dig into my pocket, find my phone, punch in my code, STUD, unlock the phone. She knew how to dial the number and call 911 and tell them the address and let them know Daddy was sleeping and not waking up. And I did all of this just so I could have a little peace of mind that she would know what to do in case there was an emergency. So this all kept happening. I'd be driving in the car, think that some semi-truck was gonna come out of nowhere and T-bone me and kill me. Be eating pancakes, I'm probably gonna choke on a pancake while I'm eating this. Whatever I was doing, it didn't matter. There was always just this sudden looming fear of death. And I thought to myself, I was like, man, something has to change. I can't keep living in this constant fear of death all the time. And by the way, teaching your kids your address during a time of emergency, it's a good thing. Just not if it's fueled by this constant fear of death. That's probably not the good part about it. So, back to not living with this constant fear. I did what any good person would do. I went right back on the internet. Punched it in, anxiety, panic attack. There's plenty of articles out there that talk about it. Apparently, like I said, it's pretty common. And there's lots of ways you can go about helping yourself. Some choose to medicate, some choose meditation. One that really stuck out to me was grounding myself and knowing about, thinking about thoughts that were familiar to me and touching things in my house randomly. Hey, there's a remote control. I recognize that. Here's my guitar. I recognize this. And doing these things would help ground me whenever I felt a panic attack or anxiety start coming into my body. And so I got that going. And Adelaide now is getting older, becoming a little more independent. Tear. But I take solace in the fact of knowing that if the fit ever hit the shan, she would know what to do. It makes me feel good to know that. Now, has my anxiety gone away? Have my panic attacks subsided? Hell no. But I do have a lot more control over them. And, her teenage years are coming up. No anxiety there, right? She'd be totally fine. But the biggest thing of being up here and doing this is because we, as men, we're taught throughout our life that these feelings and emotions, you just need to man up. Just man up. Power through it. That's all you're taught your entire life. That emotions and feelings are weakness. And that you're not supposed to talk about these types of things because you're being weak. You're just supposed to push. Just push them down. Push them way down. And so my hope is that by being up here tonight, the two guys in the audience tonight, if they're having issues or something like that, and I'm not saying you got to come up here and tell a story, but I'm just saying that I want you to know that it's okay to talk about these things. And maybe by more men seeing guys like me doing this type of thing, it'll help spark some sort of change. And through that change, my hope is that we, as mamas and papas, can lean on each other, help support each other, but the biggest thing also, to be able to go and seek support without feeling any shame whatsoever, man or woman. So that's my story.
That's a man right there. Thank you, baby, for bringing a little testosterone. I'd like to invite all these beautiful ovaries. I want to say thank you, Missoula and Helena. Thank you for showing up. Come on up here, mermaid. Thank you for your laughter and your tears and for going there and just holding such a beautiful, powerful space for all of these incredible stories. So bow. Yeah? single storyteller on this stage. I'm in awe of this journey and of this moment tonight, of these perfect, beautiful, raw, powerful stories you told tonight, and the journey we've had together. And I kind of want to quote something that Adelaide says. She'll say to me, "Mama, there are no words for how much I love you. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like." So I'd like to say, mamas and papa, there are no words for how much I love you and admire you and respect what you've done here and we've done together. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like. It's like this. There's just no words. Before we say goodnight, I have a few maternal mental health announcements. I want to give a massive thanks to the Parenting Place that did respite childcare. I want to thank postpartum doula extraordinaire and beautiful mama friend of mine, Cerise Allen, who helped gather all the resources for the resource table. Or two papas in the audience that something was cracked wide open for you tonight, or has been, something's tender in you and you need someone to talk to, that Cerise will be womaning the resource table. And whether you need someone to talk to or you need resources for yourself or a friend or a loved one, a family member, she can help you navigate that table in the lobby tonight. I want to say that if you're interested in doing something like this, whether that means coming and taking a storytelling workshop with me, coming on stage is not a requirement, but there will be future storytelling workshops for moms and dads around their postpartum perinatal journeys. We will have future MOMedy events, and we're also going to do a series of events called MOMedy, which will be for people that even aren't parents and for experiences of loss and trauma beyond the parental experience. I also want to say for MOMedy, which will be for mamas and papas, so we might have to come up with another name, what? Poppity, there could be a poppity if we could get more than one papa, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That will be for moms and dads with kids of any age. So if you need to come up here and tell a story about your 42-year-old kid who's still off the teat, I want to hear that story, okay? But there's an interest list out in the lobby that Jenny will be womaning for workshops and shows if you're interested in either one of those. If you are a provider that walks with families through the perinatal period or a peer advocate and you would like further training around perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, I'm so excited that with Bree Oliver, who's here tonight and brought this beautiful contingency from Helena, Bree Oliver of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, who is just an incredible force of nature and my partner in crime in maternal mental health in the state of Montana. We are partnering with the Clinical Psych Center of the University of Montana and putting on a 2-day perinatal conference in Fairmont, October 20th, 21st. There are brochures about that conference for peer advocates and providers in October. MOMedy will perform, all these stories will be on Saturday night, and there's an incredible lineup of national experts coming in to teach a curriculum that never before has been taught in person in Montana, so please do check that out on the resource table. Let me see. If you have never heard my story and would like to hear it, it is available on playingmonopoliwithgod.com, and I have cards on the table. Or if you heard it, but you'd like a friend to hear it, a loved one to hear it. We did film one of our shows in New York City in May, and you can now watch it from the website and laugh and cry and call me if you need support afterwards. If you had friends, a lot of people wanted to come to MOMedy that did not get tickets. The Roxy said 50 people called today. So there might be an encore performance beyond Fairmont. We shall let you know. But I do want to say that MCAT's here tonight. Thank you, MCAT, so much. Thank you. service that MCAT provides, we received a grant to have this filmed for free, and MOMedy will air on October 1st and 6th on MCAT at 10 p.m. So do tell your friends about that. And was there anything else? Oh.
Okay, I know you've been in here for 2 hours and you probably have to pee. I can sympathize with that. But I just want to say, what an audience. You guys kicked the pants off last night, right? Thank you very, very much for coming. And a huge thank you and another round of applause for Melissa Bangs. She not only had the vision and the bravery to take her own very tender, hilarious story around the country, but she saw something in us that became this, and that takes an incredibly nurturing, nourishing, hilarious, patient person to grow us into what you see here tonight. And I think that that just speaks volumes of the person she is and the belief she has in this community. And I think I speak for all of us when I say, never has there been a person in our lives like you. So, thank you, Sherpa.